Peter Hitchens is here, columnist at the Mail on Sunday. Peter, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Difficult to think of anything else at the moment when you hear somebody talking about that scenario, really, isn't it?
So it is, and to imagine the effect on a human being's life of having a close relative stolen by murderers, basically, and hidden away from you, and having no way of knowing whether you'll ever see them again, day after day after day. It is so cruel.
Yeah.
And it is the kind of thing which people think they can do because they're so good and so right, that it's so common in the modern world that people think their cause is so just that they will do terrible things of unbelievable injustice, and I have to say that counts in many other directions as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we are in a very strange time at the moment. You know, we've got Keir Starmer off to Kyiv today, where apparently he's going to forge a landmark 100-year partnership with Ukraine, which slightly worries me because I didn't know that we were going to do that, and I don't really know what it means.
No. I don't recall anybody saying they were going to do it, but it all fits in, I'm afraid, with the great delusion of grandeur which grips this country, its people and its government, that we're still a politically, diplomatically and militarily important country, and a rich one, which we're not. And the gross domestic product figures this morning show that we're not, and the flounderings of our faintly ridiculous chance to the exchequer show that we're not a rich country. So how is it that we can rush off to Ukraine and pledge them our full support when we haven't really got any money, and when our own armed forces don't work? Our ships can't put to sea, our army is tiny, and our air force is increasingly obsolete. We spend more money on housing benefit than we do on the air force. So quite why we are in a position to commit all this money and equipment to Ukraine, I'm not sure, nor, I have to say, am I sure in why it is in Britain's interests to do so. And I think that this really ought to be discussed. But our Parliament is so dead and so empty of dissenting voices that there has been no debate about the sense of this, and anybody who suggests that it might just possibly not be the wisest course of action is immediately denounced as a traitor and an operative of the Russian secret services. So it's very difficult to discuss it, but it is time we did. And when people see what it's costing, and also how little good it's doing to the people of Ukraine, who live increasingly in penury and darkness, then they might reconsider it. But no, it just goes on and on and on like a bulldozer.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? You think he might have mentioned it somewhere in his shenanigans or in the House of Commons this week.
You would, but then again, as I say, the level of debate in this country, both in the media and in Parliament, is so pathetic that he can practically say anything, and people say, "Oh yes, great, let's give our support to Ukraine," not apparently thinking about what this has done, the misery which Western policy has caused for the actual people of Ukraine. Is astounding. You say, and people will rightly say, well, the misery that Russian policy has caused towards the people of Ukraine is also appalling, and that is true. But that doesn't necessarily excuse a bad policy on our side.
No, quite. I want to ask you about Gerry Adams, whose name did arise in the Commons yesterday. You've told me many times, and I know from just your knowledge of you, that you've had plenty of run-ins. You used to describe Gerry Adams as having a very cold stare, and you spent quite a lot of time following him around, didn't you?
I did, yes, and there was one moment in private when we confronted each other, which was pretty fierce, but that was in private. In general, he at least attempted to be good-humoured about my pursuit of him. This is when he was first allowed entry to the United States back in the 1990s, about the time the United States decided pretty much to back provisional Sinn Féin against the British government, which they've done ever since. And I've said for so long that the so-called Good Friday Agreement, which I insist on giving its neutral name, the Belfast Agreement, was an act of surrender by the British government to the IRA. And people keep saying, what do you mean? It's obviously a British victory. I say, well, hang on a minute. Now you see that we're planning to pay compensation to Mr. Adams. Surely you can see this is the clearest sign of all that we lost.
It's a capitulation, surely.
What more do you need to understand that they beat us? And the main reason for this was what was so visible in Washington, D.C. in the early 1990s when I was there, was that the United States government decided that was going to be their policy. They didn't care about the supposed special relationship and their long-standing ally and so forth. They preferred to back Irish republicanism, and that's what they've done ever since. And here we are. There's a very funny cartoon in the Daily Telegraph this morning in my map showing people looking up a gigantic statue of Jerry Adams and saying, well, I understand about the compensation, but I'm a bit surprised by the statue. It's worth getting out and looking at it.
I will have a look at that. Yeah, because it is. I mean, it's farcical, but also kind of sinister in its way as well. And the idea that Keir Starmer got up yesterday in Parliament because he was now worried about the backlash to say we're going to do our level best to make sure it doesn't happen, while creating a law to make it happen.
Well, quite, and having a close colleague who's been involved in all this.
Yes, my Lord Hermer.
He's a very interesting member of the government. I think people should take a lot of notice of him. His appointment was very significant in letting us know what kind of government this is going to be. That is to say, a much more left-wing one than most people understand.
Yes.
But yeah, it is. So many things. For goodness' sake, Martin McGuinness in white tie and tails at Windsor Castle.
Yeah.
Ought to have, one of my favourite lines in English literature is Jemima Puddleduck, who, as you may recall, was asked to dinner by a fox. And even required to provide some of the ingredients for the dinner. Right. There's a wonderful line, even the mention of sage and onion did not make her suspicious. There's no limit to the gullibility of people when they want to believe the opposite of the truth.
Yeah.
We have given in to these people, and Northern Ireland is on, as we clearly see, a slow ramp to reunification with the Republic of Ireland.
There's no question about that.
We've lost control of it.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think the time frame is?
We did many years ago. What do you think? While pretending it was called peace.
What do you think the time frame is for the United Ireland thing?
I have no idea. This has always been the difficulty. You can generally predict by looking at the elements of the crisis. You can generally predict which way it's going. But things, as the appalling Vladimir Lenin said, things could take years to happen. Or alternatively, many years can happen in a matter of weeks. Yeah. So it could suddenly come to a head at some point in the result of some change of government here or there, or some new development in the United States. I don't know. But the direction seems to me to have been absolutely clear ever since the 1998 agreement, and it continues in that direction. And over again, you look at the different treatment of ex-IRA killers, the man who blew up the Brighton Hotel, compared with the continued hounding of former British soldiers and Royal Ulster Constabulary people. It's plain again that the victors are all on the other side. And if this doesn't tell people what's going on, I honestly don't know what will.
Yeah, I know.
I hope he enjoys the money. or actually, what can I say? I mean, really and truly, it is the absolute pit of national humiliation when this kind of thing is going on.
It really is.
Recognize that's what it is, instead of constantly saying, oh well, yes, but we got peace and it's all right in Northern Ireland and everything's fine. No, we lost. Yeah,
exactly right. One quick point about Lucy Letby. You got a column in the Mail today about it. You're saying that there's a twist in the tale now, that even if she is innocent, looks like she's not coming out of prison.
Well, I think it's, judging by what's happened in previous cases, even where huge amounts of momentum have got behind various people who've turned out to have been wrongly convicted, it takes years. And the situation in the Criminal Case Review Commission, which just lost its leadership and was all before that in a considerable mess, is bad. I'm beginning to move towards the following formula, which is the longer the sentence which has been imposed upon somebody who's alleging a miscarriage of justice, the higher up the queue for review that case should be. I think that this case badly needs reviewing. I think David Davis's recent speech in the House of Commons, which everybody should read, indicates strongly that there are things very, very badly wrong with this case. It needs to be either retried or it needs to go to an appeal, which has so far been denied. Only the CCRC can make that happen. But at the moment, it's in a queue with actually scores of other cases and a huge backlog in an organisation which is understaffed and in my view, strongly underfunded, given the huge number of miscarriages of justice, acknowledged ones, which are now registered at a database at the University of Exeter. I think maybe since 1970 there have been 500 actual definite miscarriages of justice in the courts of this country, which is a shocking number. And the numbers grow because I think the quality of justice in our courts is declining quite fast. Yeah. And how can you decide what to give priority and what to, because all these things are urgent in their way. I would say if someone aged 35 has been told that she will die in prison. If there's any chance that she is not guilty, any serious chance that she's not guilty, and if measures can be taken to reopen that case, she should get priority.
Okay. Peter Hitchens, thank you very much indeed. That column in the Mail today, of course, go and find it and go and read it. Peter Hitchens back, of course, same time next week.